Today we'll be talking about video-computer psychocorrection with our guest, Dr. Michael Pizhadze. Now, we are talking about a mouthful here, video-computer psychocorrection. Maybe you can explain to our viewers what that means. Right?
This technology actually was developed to do a psychological correction to harmonize a person's stability. As we know that there's a...
When it is stability, you mean both physical and mental? Or?
Actually, yes, both physical and mental. Most of us go under daily stress issues, and there are a lot of issues that really following us from our childhood that we never realized. The program was developed by a professor Tendila Nuashvili from the Moscow Science Institute. And what he did for many, many years of research, he figured out that if we actually split the face in two different sides, like the two lefts and two rights, and put those two left pictures together, and then measure the distance from the eyes, the nose, and the lips, he figured it out that there is a psychological that we can actually give a psychological analysis to a person, what psychological state that person is. But once we know what his psychological state is, we can start figuring out what kind of corrections we can do.
What you're really saying is that whatever happens, it has a mental impact or has an emotional impact, eventually will register itself on the face.
99.9% of the time, yes. It actually, everything that we never actually paid attention in our childhood, it could follow us throughout until we're 50, 60, 70, if we never had the ability to actually correct it. This program generally was developed also for the Pentagon, so they could catch terrorists, just by taking their picture, splitting, and seeing what psychological state the person is. We know that if the psychological state is super depressive or super destructive, we know that this person could be, let's say, as a terrorist. But what our job is, he changed it and he used it to psychology, he put it into psychology, so we could actually help people. Because there are people who go into serious daily stress issues. And there are sometimes times that if they come into work and they're psychologically very depressed, very destructive, or very intuitively just want to do something, it's actually always showing their eyes. In their eyes, it also always shifts.
And also their mouth.
Mouth, right. It depends on the distance of the eyes, the nose, and the lips. If we can start measuring those things after we do the split.
There it is.
So right there, if we look at the left hemisphere, we understand that there is a consciousness. And if we go into the right hemisphere, it's super consciousness. What we're trying to do is balance those two together so the brain will function much more.
So I mean, if there is a balance between the left and the right hemisphere.
And most of the time there isn't a balance, because most of the time we always think with one side of the brain. What the picture does when we put those two pictures together, with two lefts and two rights, it gives us a much better psychological, a brain starts fixing actually itself. If we go to the second picture, it will give us the 49 different types of psychological types that we can actually decode just by measuring of the eyes. So what are those types?
There are 49 different types.
Psychological types, right. So we have a stable, which is the person will be the most harmonious. Then we have the logical stable, intuitive stable. Then we have just in the middle right there, just the logical. And then on the right side is the intuitive. And then again, if we go all the way at the bottom, this is where we have the logical impulsive. In the middle, we will have the impulsive. And intuitive impulsive will be on the right side. What does it mean, impulsive? Impulsive, all the way at the bottom, that a person is really does not care for himself, for his life, for other people's life. This is what's considered, a person will be like a slightly suicidal. Okay? And this is where we actually know if a person is suicidal. That's what in psychology was going to be considered as a terrorist, because he's ready to kill himself and everybody around him. And through visualization, if we go to a picture number 3, here we could actually, this is how we do the measurement of the eye, the nose, how the lip drops down. And by that picture, we will be actually be able to determine her psychological type. So when that person came to us, her psychological type was logical and impulsive, which wasn't really bad. The kid was slightly depressed, and we had to do a correction. And people always ask, how long does that kind of correction would take? Usually with children, it's much easier to work because they're always at the beginning stage of
So what does the correction consist of?
The correction consists actually just to talking to a child and finding out, to a child or to anybody, finding out at what stage something went wrong. What happens that in the past, something will happen to us and nobody really paid attention, walk it out or let it go, and things will just be kept in the back of the subconscious level.
It will be stored in the tissue memory.
Yeah, and then slowly as they grow, that problem will remain there. And that problem never lets them move forward. There's always constant blockages. They go to school, they graduate, they get their degrees, they get so many different things, but they cannot move forward. Something is blocking them.
But besides not moving forward, that problem in creating these blockages in the tissues can also create a certain disease state.
Absolutely, because when a person is not in harmony, when a person is not happy with what he's doing, that constantly will create not just a psychological disorder, it will start create a physical disorder also. Intestinal problems, kidney problems, fear grows up.
Well, it depends on the type of condition, the type of trauma, where it's going to store itself in the tissue memory. Like, for instance, if it's for anger, it would be the liver, right?
There
and
you
so
go.
on, right? Yeah.
So that's what sometimes people, they just don't understand why they have certain illnesses. We figured out that we cannot, certain clients we just could not treat no matter what we do. Medication didn't work, alternative medicine didn't work, and we tried to figure out why. And when we put in the psychology into it, we're starting to understand that a person needs to kind of first be prepared psychologically to help himself and to get back on the right track. And this program, in 1 or 2 sessions, we can give you a full psychological type. And in second session, we can actually give you a correction. And after that, you don't really need to see us for at least another 6 months or a year.
You're saying this actually releases the problem from the deep psyche.
Yeah. When the girl came to us, as you could see, she was logical and she was a little bit angry. And for a child to be that angry, we had to actually work a lot with her. Usually we do 1 or 2 sessions, but with that particular child, we had to do about 4 sessions. And if we go to the following picture, we could see within 2 or 3 hours, it actually took us 3 hours to work with her, we moved her for logical and angry child to a much more harmonized. Okay, and that happened without the picture. So if you could look at the pictures, she's slightly being shifted. If we go to the next picture, you could see the before and after. Okay, and that happened, the shift happened directly within almost 3 hours of working with her. And you could see her lip, her eyes, her face completely being shifted. Maybe with the picture we can, but if you go to the following picture, we could see the degree of the change in her eyes. As you could see that the right eye completely shifted down and the lip completely went up almost to be to the original state. Usually we call that like a facelift. But the facelift doesn't happen just to a child. We did any kind of massage. It happened by talking to her and by her looking at her picture, and her brain and subconsciously started to correct whatever the problems were. And this is in general very important, not just for kids, it's very important for every human being who's working on a daily basis, and without even understanding why they cannot move forward. Having this kind of technology or having this kind of 1 or 2 sessions a year could help a person to release all the problems that he had from the childhood and help him to move forward. Also will help him to change his face structure. In most cases, just so we understand this properly, it's not that we do the correction, it's their brain when it sees itself.
No, but you guide the brain.
We guide the brain to function properly, and then the brain will correct itself. The problem is that we never see, we only see ourselves through a mirror image, and that's as far as we see. And in this particular case, we actually be able to help because we can actually always determine between the 49 different stages that Professor Anoshvili developed. Once we know exactly what psychological state a person is, according to that state, we give a psychological correction. And we actually had so many shifts, even in 1 session alone, just in 1 session. We never had more than 3 sessions with a person. I mean, when we do a 3 session, it's actually for somebody who is almost like a suicidal, super destructive. but within 3 sessions, we can change a person's life. And that gives a person the ability to move not just forward by himself, but move forward with everybody who's surrounding him. Because when we change the world around us.
Now let's track back for a moment. So when you look at the picture, you first look at the difference between the light and the
no, first you look at the picture, you look at 2 pictures, which are spiritual and vital. You see the pictures when they're following up from the top to the bottom.
Yeah.
This is the one that's on the left-hand side is the spiritual, and the one that's on the right is the vital picture. And throughout the picture, if we look from the top to the bottom, we could see how her face completely became focused. She's looking directly at you, she's looking, and that's how the correction actually happened. When she looks at those 2 pictures and we talk to her, her face starts slightly shifting, and as it shifts, and as she looks at it, the brain starts to correct slowly and put her in more harmonious state. Once she's in a harmonious state, she starts to feel and communicate much, much better. The reason that this kind of technology is important in today's life, we have stress on a daily basis, and if we cannot move forward, that means something is stopping us. We can determine what it is and help the client or a person to move forward. And the sessions, all it takes is we need their picture, and we need 1 session to give them a correction. The correction is verbal correction, actually. We take them to their childhood. We try to find out what time they were happy, what time something happened to them, and then we'll try to put all that together and correct it. We know that the psychological has been in research for the past 30 years, and we know that it works. Therefore, we can actually start working with it and bring it to the United States and start helping the future generation to correct themselves in a much, much easier way than before.
Well, Michael, we're coming to the end of our program. I want to thank you very much for being with us again today.
My pleasure.